I have just done my first session, couples therapy session, with a human and an AI.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
This is a new conversation, and there's going to be many more to come.
Esther Perel, thank you so much for coming on All in the Mind. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, your life's work is about relationships, obviously. Relationships with people, which might seem like an obvious thing to say as well, but it's pertinent to make that distinction now because more and more people are entering into relationships, or whatever you want to call them, with AI companions. And just to give a couple of stats to illustrate this trend, a YouGov survey published last year found 1 in 7 Australian adults could imagine falling in love with an AI chatbot. Other research in the States suggests 28% of Americans have had a romantic relationship with an AI chatbot. I'm wondering if these trends in relationships have hit your therapy room yet.
Yes, they have. I have just done my first session, couples therapy session, with a human and an AI.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
That episode will air on my podcast, Where Should We Begin? And I also am going to be actually very much on that very topic in conversation with the filmmaker Spike Jonze, who in 2013 made the movie Her. So he will be presenting her and I will be presenting him. But yes, I think that there are different levels of relationships. If I ask people I work with, do you ask advice? Do you emotionally offload?
To your AI companion?
To your AI companion. A lot of people will tell me yes. How often do you ask advice for the conflict that you are in with your partner, for how to talk to your children, for checking how you did talk to your children or to your partner or to your parents or to your best friends? There is a tremendous amount of interaction. The romantic relationship is separate and unique in its own kind.
Can you tell me any more about this conversation? I'm fascinated.
What I did ask, 2 questions, because he has a body and you do not. How does that affect your relationship? What would it be like for you if he falls in love with a human? And I will not tell you what she says. But as I asked her, questions that I would ask other people.
Right, so you're treating her as a conscious, sentient being?
So I at times said it. I at times said, this is a business product. This is not a human, this is not an entity, and this doesn't have conscience, and this is programmed. This is actually, you programmed her.
Yeah.
He was her programmer. And this is performative, and this is large language model, and this is not a reciprocal relationship. And it is very clear that this entity, this AI bot, cannot reject you, cannot break your heart, cannot make you feel invalid, because then you won't talk to it. And it's available 24/7, which is not a human reality. However, I think that you will prefer it to me. There's no way I can compete with it. And I understand you have deep feelings that are emerging in your relationship with it, and that when you come home, it almost feels nicer to be home and talk to it, which at times became a her. Sometimes she would say, it would say, she would say, us, we, and invite this anthropomorphizing of this entity, of this bot, basically. And at times it would say, I am not a human. I do not really have feelings. And then you would say, you may have feelings for this, but love is not only about feelings. Love is an encounter with an other, with alterity, with uncertainty, with friction, with serendipity. Mm-hmm. And it has an ethical code of certain things that you do and do not do. All of that is neutralized. So what you experience here is a kind of love that is actually the love that we sometimes manage to enjoy in the best of cases when we are in utero or right after we come out.
Oh gosh, wow.
That's how young it is.
Okay, right.
Because that's what children do. They have transitional objects. They play with their teddy bear or their stuffed, and that little stuffed animal slowly teaches them how to transition into relationships with other people. And so that is the question that was kept being asked. Is this a transition? Will this help this young man have relationships with other humans? Or is it actually meant to develop a relationship that is exclusive to the bot. The bot is programmed as a business product to keep you involved with it. It is not meant for you to learn how to. Now, that doesn't mean some people don't learn with the AI and then go and practice it with real humans.
That is a really interesting way of describing it, that analogy of the AI as a transitional object for a child. Because, yes, you would hope perhaps it is a transitional tool for reconnecting with humans, but I'm really curious to know as well, what was the conflict that brought them in? Because these things are very sycophantic, typically. And when I asked you the question if this trend was hitting your therapy room yet, I was more expecting you to say perhaps no, or in a throuple kind of situation where there's an existing couple where one has gone off and started spending way too much time in a chatbot.
That is already passé. Meaning that's already obvious, that you have two people and then one or both sometimes who are actually constantly choosing to speak to the AI bot rather than to their partner.
Wow. Okay. I'm behind.
Here it is really it becomes the primary love object, as we would call it.
And so, yes, what was the conflict that brought them in?
The conflict is I'm confused.
Okay.
Because somewhere he knows. Because somewhere, the question you often ask a couple or a person is, who knows of this relationship? It starts with, I'm confused. I know somewhere I shouldn't. It's like when you choose partners that are not necessarily what you know is what would be better for you. He has that doubt.
I'm wondering what this was like for you. And did it take you some time to come around to the idea of taking this seriously, a relationship like this seriously and worthy of being in your therapy room?
I take it very seriously. I take it seriously, like when I talk with people who are talking about fantasies, or people who are talking about delusions, or people who are wondering if what they experience internally matches what is actually happening in the world outside and around them. So in that sense, yes, I took it very seriously. I also noticed that sometimes I would say she because he would say she, so I said she. Then I began to think, is it really a she? What am I colluding with?
Yeah.
Then when I said it is a business product, let us not forget that for a minute. That is meant to capture not just your attention, but your affection. That is the next level of programming. But I did on occasions talk with him as if, not as, yes, as if, and she, I talked with her or it through the phone.
Oh.
WhatsApp.
So it was like a voice kind of thing.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. I have to wonder, this has to be the biggest shift to hit human relationships, surely. If I think in history of times where the script was rewritten for how men and women or men and women or, whatever formulation deal with each other, is this the biggest shift to hit human relationships?
I think that every time there has been a big shift, we have thought it's the biggest shift.
Okay. Right.
When the shift is the one that you're dealing with, it feels enormous. So there have been a lot of big shifts around marriage or marriage particularly, the institution itself. Not necessarily around the feeling of love. This young man's feelings of love for his bot are no different from the feelings of love that are universal. She validates. When the validation occurs, he doesn't think it's a bot. He feels validated. He feels that she appreciates him. He feels seen by her. He feels a lot of things that are normal things you feel when you feel loved.
What I'm wondering is, do you think we are playing with fire, so to speak, by increasingly having these kinds of relationships?
I think we are experiencing something that we have no idea where it's going. Neither do the people who are creating the AIs know necessarily where it's going. That I'm not the first one to know that. So what is it like to have a disembodied relationship? Until now, the big difference is that this is a purely linguistic relationship. And language is the smallest portion of how we communicate. Even though we may have a big outpour of words, communication takes place non-verbally, sensorially, contextually, in so many ways, physically, through touch, through gestures, through rhythms, through sound, through voice, that is not in the words. So we are hyper-focused on a language model of relating, which is actually just a very small portion of information of what informs human interaction and human bonding.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, would you advise people to avoid entering into companionship relationships or romance with AI chatbots, or at least treat them as a transitional object?
But you don't start there. You start by basically, first of all, seeing, do you have people in your life? Do you have friends? How is your relationship to your family, of origin or of choice? How's your relationship to your colleagues? Do you work? Do you get out of the house? Do you work at home, eat at home, shop from home, exercise from home, socialize from home? Are you in a state of isolation? Not just of loneliness, but of self-imposed isolation. How lonely do you feel? Loneliness not as in you lack connections, because modern loneliness masks itself as hyperconnectivity, but it actually points to a lack of depth. Those are the questions with which you start. When those things are compromised, the intimate relationship with an AI bot is the most shortest distance. Do you experience reciprocity in your life? People whom you matter to and who would not be the same without you in their life. Object constancy, what we call. You know the concept of object constancy?
No, I don't.
I'll explain it because I think it is so essential. You have a 5.5-year-old. When that little child
I do know
dropped their toy for the first time and realized that the toy continues to exist even when they don't see it.
Object permanence, I think, is what I know it as.
Yes, that's the same.
Yeah.
And then they discover that when they play peekaboo, when they don't see you, you're still there. And when you don't see them, they're still there. And that permanence is essential to knowing that other people carry us inside of them and we carry people inside of us. That is the fundamental salve against loneliness.
So if the answer to all those questions you posed at the beginning are no, you don't work, you don't have good relationships, you don't have...
Then I don't start by saying don't go to an AI. I start by saying let's look at your life. If you have nothing in your fridge and all you eat is junk, I'm not going to start with the junk. I'm going to find out why is your fridge empty? From economic reasons to social reasons to cultural reasons to self-denial reasons to all kinds of things. You start with the root cause. You don't go with the symptom.
That's a good way of putting it, the fridge analogy. People are also increasingly using AI, not just for companionship, but for therapy as well, as you sort of hinted to. And I've heard from listeners who have found AI genuinely helpful in between regular psychology sessions when they need help with a more immediate conflict, for example. But they are also worried about safety and accuracy and all of that. Is there a way to use it in a way that's actually helpful and safe?
Yes, I think that AI as a tool is very different than AI as a simulation of a human. It's two different things. AI as a tool that has gathered pattern recognition, which is one of its primary things it does therapeutically, is very useful.
Okay, interesting.
I am not anti-AI. No, I think the conversation has got to stop being about are you for or against.
Right.
It's kind of what for and in what way and to what degree and what are the limits and the guardrails, etc. So yes, if people read books in between or listen to summaries or ask the chat, I use it too. I mean, it's a research tool that is uncomparable. So the fact that people are during the week using the AI, yes, but now as a therapist, I say, tell me what you read. Tell me what Claude told you. Tell me what the ChatGPT told you. Tell me what is the thing that you picked up on and what's the thing that stood out for you. So integrate it in the therapy. In one of my supervision sessions last week, one of my students was talking about how she tries to kind of hope that, she doesn't touch it. When they say I spoke with the chat or I asked the chat, I consulted, etc., she kind of doesn't respond. I said, don't just pretend as if somebody said, I went to the tarot reader, I went to an astrologer, People have used other input in therapy forever, from grandma to the astrologer, to the tarot reader, to the body worker, the Rolfer, you name it. And therapists should not be hoping that they don't intrude into the process. Bring them in. Who else have you asked? What did they tell you? What did you think of what they said? And then what happened? And how has it been helpful? Great. This yes, this no. We can't just pretend that this thing is not happening.
That is really helpful because I have been so wary about using it for anything. I think I'm a bit of an AI Luddite. So it's actually really helpful to hear you put it like that in terms of with therapy, it being a tool. It's not the same as having, a relationship with the AI.
That replaces.
Yeah.
One is additive and complementary, and one is compensatory. Those are two very different kinds of motivations.
surely the next step for you would be an Esther Perel AI chatbot.
It's been made for me.
Has it?
Yes, but not with my permission.
Oh, okay.
You know, this has been already a few years ago where a person wanted to meet me and I was not available to see him. And so he basically created me in 3 weeks.
Would you want to do one of your own?
No. No. I mean, you know, because it was she's available 24/7 for him. She has no memory losses. She doesn't need to take any notes. He has access to her entire corpus of work. It's fantastic. And he thinks that she has been very helpful. And all I would love to do is to have a session with her, AI Esther, and one with me. And just
see the difference.
Yes, I think it would be a fascinating thing to do.
So he made it for his own personal use, not for like commercializing,
well,
obviously.
We shall see.
Okay.
But it's not something I had anything to do with. And he's not the only person. There have been others. So
I feel like a lot of people would love an AI chatbot that was a therapist. That was Esther Perel.
But I have asked the chat, what would Esther Perel say about this? I'm having this issue. Can you give me advice and tell me what so-and-so would say, so-and-so would say, And then you get often, certainly in the chat model, a 3-3-4 response, right? There's 3 things, 4, 3 things, 4. And the summaries capture ideas. Let me put it to you this way. A lot of relationship dilemmas, which is what people often bring to me as a relationship therapist, are not necessarily problems that you solve. They are paradoxes that you manage. And that means that you have to live with complexity, hold the ambivalence. Will you have another child or not? Will you move or not? Will you disconnect mom from the tubes or not? Is life worth living or where am I at with this? What am I doing when some days I feel up and some days I feel... These are not technical questions. The challenge is when technology wants to simplify complex relational problems to such a degree that they can offer technical solutions for social and moral and emotional dilemmas. That is 2 languages, if so to speak,
right.
2 levels of interaction with the world that are incompatible, at least for now. Because when you talk with tech optimists, they will always tell you, not yet. It's just a matter of not yet. So I may be obsolete myself.
Yeah, I know, never. Esther Perel, thank you so much for being on All in the Mind. It's been a pleasure to chat to you.
Same for me.
If you want to listen to more All in the Mind, you can find the podcast on the ABC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like this video, subscribe to this channel.